Just because you're vegan and gluten-free doesn't mean you always have to start from scratch. And I think sometimes you need to work smarter, not harder. Or should I say, bake smarter. Today I want to share with you my test bake using this gluten-free yellow cake mix from Bob's Red Mill. We're going to adjust this recipe so that it's not only gluten-free, but it's also vegan. And we're going to do so by testing out 2 techniques to see which one is best. Let's get baking. All right, so here's our bag for our first technique trial. I'm basically gonna follow this recipe as it is. We're only gonna swap out the eggs, nothing else for this one. So it's very easy. I mean, 3 eggs, water, butter, and the mix. So this is gonna be super simple. What we're going to do for technique 1 is use just egg. I've used this in a few baking recipes and it works out really well. And just egg gives you an estimate of about 3 tablespoons per egg. So what I went ahead and did was measured out a half a cup plus an extra tablespoon because this Bob's Red Mill mix calls for 3 eggs. So that's what we got here. So first we're going to get our eggs into the bowl using our handy dandy rubber spatula. And now for yellow cake, the yellow comes from the eggs. So there is yellow coloring in the just egg, so we're gonna trust that that's gonna give us enough of that yellow color to match the actual eggs that we're missing. So next we're gonna add the butter. So the butter is half a cup melted butter, and of course we're using vegan butter here. So we're gonna give that a little whip first before we add the last 2 ingredients. And it's only liquid in here, so let's start off slow. I'm gonna bring it up a little bit. So it's looking nice and yellow, so hopefully that turns our yellow cake mix the color that we want. All right, so now let's open up our Bob's Red Mill. Now these mixes are great too because it's gluten-free and it has all the things you need for gluten-free. See tapioca flour here, xanthan gum, all the things that I usually add to a lot of my bakes. But the fear is we're not using the eggs. So the eggs usually give it that fluffiness. I do think we're gonna get some success with the just egg. So let's see, let me take this up first. Let's take this off. I always make that mistake and make a mess. We're gonna just dump it all in because again, we're trying to be efficient with our time here. I'm gonna blend that a little bit before adding the water, which is the final ingredient. It's getting real thick there. So now we're gonna add the water while it's still blending. It's a half a cup of water. And I'm gonna slow it down because it's gonna splash on me. There we go. Maybe I could slowly increase it. And just the rest here. All right. I mean, it's looking like batter. I'm gonna try to get it a little faster. And again, if you've seen some of my other videos, you've probably heard me mention this already, but we're not gonna worry about over mixing because there's no glutens in here, so they're not gonna get overworked. So I'd rather make sure all the ingredients are getting blended and that just egg is getting whipped. All right, I think that's good enough. Let's take a look. Okay. It's looking pretty watery, but for our test bakes today, what we're making are sheet cakes. So I think this is perfect because we're gonna want this to spread on a pretty large pan. So I think we're ready to put this onto our sheet pan. Okay, so I have my sheet pan. I've already laid out parchment paper. That should be enough for the sheet cake to not stick, but I'm crazy. I like extra insurance. So I've got a little bit of olive oil here. And I'm just gonna spread some on because I just don't like the anxiety of praying that my bake doesn't stick. So I'm just going to do a little basting of the oil. Not a lot, just enough to basically make the parchment paper itself stick. Now I'm making a sheet cake. Maybe you're going to use this recipe and make an actual like round cake, whatever you decide. You may or may not need to go this extra step that I'm going, but I just feel like with a sheet pan, I feel more comfortable knowing that it's non-stick all around. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So we're gonna pour this in and just let it spread out. Give it a little stir here because it's been a few minutes. Oh yeah. I think it's looking yellow enough too, right? I think the Just Egg did its job as far as color. Now we just need it to do its job with the rise. Because we do have to spread it out here a bit. This is also why I like my rubber spatula, because we are not gonna leave anything behind. Get over here. And I might be taking a risk using a sheet pan, but I just wanted to make a sheet cake. Could have made a round. I think it says you can make 2 8-inch rounds with this box. But I guess I want to push the boundaries and see how the sheet cake comes up. Hey guys, I just want to take a moment real quick to ask for your support. If you like my recipes, please subscribe to my channel. And when you do, make sure to select that bell that's marked all. That will ensure that you get notified every time I post a new video. Thanks. Now let's get back to baking. All right, so let me give it a little tilt to make sure we get it even. Like I said, we're really testing the boundaries of whether this Just Egg is gonna help this cake rise because this is a thin cake. Okay, so now we're ready to try our second technique. So we've got another whole bag of the yellow cake mix, and we're gonna dump that in first. As opposed to last time when I did the Just Egg, we're gonna do the mix. And then we're gonna add our other dry ingredients. So for this one, even though the mix has a little baking powder in it, since we're not using real eggs, I'm adding an additional tablespoon of baking powder. And then because we're not using Just Egg and we don't have any color, I'm adding about a pinch of turmeric. So that should give us enough of that yellow color. Turmeric's pretty iffy, like you wanna definitely do a pinch or start off small because it can be stronger than you think as far as coloring. All right, so let's just blend the dry ingredients real quick. Okay, now we're gonna slowly add the rest of the ingredients. We've got our 1/2 cup of melted butter. And then we have a 1/2 cup of water. I'm gonna turn this up a little bit because it's getting nice and saucy. And this one's interesting because it's very pasty right now. So I'm gonna turn it up. All right, so now the egg replacer we're gonna try for this technique is Aquafaba. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically the water that comes in the can with the chickpeas. So I've already strained some out. We're gonna do 1/2 cup. But one thing I like to do is give it a little whisk to put some air into it. So I put it in another bowl here, and we're just gonna like whisk it up by hand. You can already see how it gets that really like egg whitey look to it. So you want to get that nice and frothy. And I would say definitely doing it by hand is all you need. You don't need to put it in a stand mixer to whisk it, because then you'll probably whisk it too much. Because we still want that liquid. So just a little froth on the top, like you're making a cappuccino. Okay. Let's get this out. Don't want to waste any. All right, look at that. Just gonna give it a little stir. It's very thick. All right, so now let's add our Aquafaba. We're gonna add our Aquafaba and get the rest of it because we really need that liquid. I'm finding that this is not a very liquidy batter. And now we're just gonna kind of fold it in. This is a really interesting texture. Kind of like the way that looks though. So you gotta have a little patience here because we're not using the mixer. I don't want to deflate the little whisks that we, I don't want to deflate the froth that we made. So it's just gonna take a few more turns like this. It's getting blended. Oh yeah. Look at that. Yeah, I like the way that feels. It's fluffy. All right, I think that's ready to go into our pan. Okay, so we have our second pan. It's already prepared, just like the first one. A little olive oil on there for my insurance. But I am noticing this isn't as yellow, so I went a little too conservative with that turmeric. So I'm actually gonna add just a tad more because I want it to look just like the other one. So again, be mild with that because it can be stronger than you think, but I went a little too light. Let's see. I might add a little more turmeric because this is yellow cake after all. So let's get yellow. All right, I think that's looking a lot better. Might not be as yellow as egg yolk would get it, but I think we're close. Mostly I want to match our other bake so that we can have a fair comparison. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead a little more. So when all said and done, after all these little additions I've made with the turmeric, I'm gonna go ahead and say you probably will need half a teaspoon of turmeric to get the color you'd like. All right, so I think we're ready. So we're gonna add this to our pan. This one's definitely a different texture than our technique 1 with the just egg. So it's gonna be real interesting to see how these come out. I can already tell you this is not making as much batter as the other one did, or at least the texture is not spreading as much as the other one. So I'm gonna have to give this a little more help to fill the pan. Probably gonna have to give this a little, one of those slams on the counter before we put it in to make sure it's all settled evenly. Okay, so here they are side by side. You can already see some differences. The just egg technique is definitely a little more yellow, but it is a little thinner. So we'll see what happens with that if the Just Egg helps it to rise. And then the Aquafaba turmeric one did not get quite as yellow, but it is fluffier right now. So it's gonna be really interesting to compare these two after they bake. I put a little marker in here just in case I can't tell. There's a toothpick in the Just Egg one. So let's get these in the oven, and I'm going to rotate them at 10 minutes. It should take 20 minutes total, but halfway we're gonna shift them in the oven so that they have equal bake time. Okay, they are both ready. Let's take a look. So color is different. The Just Egg one here actually went in a little more yellow, and it's looking more white to me. Still has a little bit of a yellow color, so that's fine. And then this was the Aquafaba one. It's definitely fluffier. The turmeric gave it maybe a twinge of orange more than yellow, but it still gives it, you know, that illusion at least. So we're gonna let these cool for just a few minutes, and then we'll cut in a little bit to see how the texture came out. Okay, so I think the Aquafaba technique gave us a little more height, a little bit thicker, a little fluffier. The color is a little more orange, but the thickness, I think we achieved a little more with this version. The color for the Just Egg technique got a little closer to your traditional yellow cake. Not as much of a rise, but there is a rise. I mean, it's pretty good, but you would definitely need a few layers if you were gonna do a layer cake if you used the Just Egg. They both look pretty good, but yeah, as far as we can see, rise a little bit better with the Aquafaba, color a little bit better with the Just Egg. Okay, so we're just gonna cut a little piece of each here and see. Let me get a little center. Okay, that's our Just Egg portion. And then let me wipe this off. Oop. They're both pretty sticky on the top. I guess that's just how sheet cake is. All right, now Aquafaba. Okay, so here's our little samples of the sheet cake. We've got the Aquafaba and the Just Egg. Like I said, the Aquafaba is a little fluffier, Just Egg slightly bit less, but they're pretty close. So the taste is really gonna be the clincher as to which one we like better. So I'm gonna try this Aquafaba one first. I was worried how this was gonna taste, having to add that extra bit of turmeric. Turmeric's pretty subtle taste, but if the more you add, the more you can start tasting it. It's pretty mild. It's moist, it's spongy. So this one's pretty good. Let's try the Just Egg. Okay, so this one's also spongy, but not quite as much. A little, I don't know if you can see, it's a little denser, but the taste is a lot lighter. So, gosh, this is really a toss-up. At the end of the day, I really think this is gonna come down to what kind of cake you're making and what you want to use for your ingredients. The Just Egg probably was the easiest because all you have to do is use Just Egg instead of the real eggs. Whereas the Aquafaba requires the Aquafaba, the additional turmeric, and the baking powder. However, the Aquafaba version came out a little fluffier, whereas the Just Egg version, a little thinner. So I ultimately think it's going to depend on what kind of cake you're making. For me, I'm gonna go with the Aquafaba because I think for a layer cake, this option works best because it's a little fluffier and I'm going to add frosting to it anyway. So any of that maybe leftover turmeric taste is not gonna hinder the cake at all. If you're looking for a cake that's solely yellow cake with maybe minimal frosting or icing, then the Just Egg option is probably gonna be your best bet because it has a lighter taste and that vanilla flavor comes through. So there you have it. It's okay to grab a mix once in a while to make a delicious vegan and gluten-free baked good, as long as you know what to do with it. I hope you give this a try and let me know in the comments how it goes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. It really helps me to grow my channel and to continue bringing you more recipes and tips. Thank you so much. See ya.